Bless you, Pastor. Choir just got through singing a song.
Yes, sir.
Said, I'm determined. This is Resurrection Sunday. Don't celebrate it as Easter Sunday, because Easter Sunday, if you go back through the history of it all, Easter was celebrated as a pagan holiday. And there's a story behind Easter, but we won't go into that. Easter's only mentioned one time in the Bible. It's in the book of Matthew. One time it is mentioned that they refer to the word Easter. But here we are celebrating Resurrection Sunday. And the choir just got through singing the song saying, I'm determined. I'm determined to go all the way. There's some folks that start out in the race and they find themselves getting a little bit tired, and they find themselves stepping off onto the sideline because they have been defeated by the anxiety or the worry that has come over their body. They find themselves getting out of the race because of the issues and things that may have complications that may have come up during the race. But I am determined. I don't know if you all feel it the way I feel it. I'm just happy that Jesus did what he did for me. I don't know if you went through what I've been through. I don't know if you've gone through what I've done. I don't know if you've experienced some of the sin that I was wrapped up in. But I am so glad that Jesus died for me. Oh, I'm determined. I'm determined to go all the way. And then we sung that song. It was on my heart all through the week, Pastor. The song that says, When I See Jesus. Amen. Amen. When I see the one who died for me. Amen. When I see the one who set me free. Maybe you're not free today. Maybe you're not feeling the freedom that you got today. Maybe you're not experiencing the freedom that you have today. But when I see Jesus. Amen. Amen. Pastor asked me to do the Resurrection Sunday service. I was so honored when he said it to me. I was like a little kid in a candy shop. Standing back there in the back, and I was prepared to sit in the chair and back the pastor because he was going to preach the message on today. And it's always good when a preacher gets up to be able to support him and to push him along, because then you can feel a freedom. You can feel a freedom in the delivery of your word that you're giving. So I'm going to ask those of you that know that you're free on today and that you came out to celebrate the resurrection of Christ on today, I'm just going to ask you to back me for just a few minutes. I'm not going to be before you long, but I want you to understand that if you're determined to go on with Jesus on today, that there's going to be a special blessing that God has for you. If you're determined to give God your due diligence on today, that there is a special blessing that God has for you. We've got some visitors that have come through the door. We got some folks that have made it in on today. I'm happy that my daughter's here on today. I'm happy that my wife is here on today. I'm happy that my son and my youngest daughter is here on today. I'm happy that my daddy is here on today. I'm happy that my sisters are here on today. I'm happy that that host of nieces and nephews that I got is here on today. See, there's enough that you have to be happy for, that you should come into the house of God giving him some praise because of what he's done already in your life. Here we are. Going to tell you a story real quick. Out of the book of Matthew. We're going to go through the book of Matthew very, very quickly. Let me help you understand the story, and maybe you can relate this story to your life. Maybe you can look at how some things have occurred in your life and realize that it's not time for me to give up, but it's time for me to press on. That's it. It's not time for me to stand back and feel as though I've been defeated, but it's time for me to stand back and realize that victory is on its way. It's not time for me to give up on the situations that I might be in right now, the circumstances and the struggles that I might be going through. It's not time for me to give up right now, but it's time for me to continue to press my way in this race, because I know at the end of this race there's a victory that's going to sound. There's a victory trumpet that is going to blow. There is a victory that I'm going to have because Jesus is my friend. Out of the book of Matthew, you don't have to follow the chapters, because I'm going to be going right from chapter 1 straight on through and out of the book of Matthew. But when you get an opportunity, you can then read the book of Matthew. If there's an interest or there's something that intrigued you in one of the stories that is told, you'll be able to find it in the book of Matthew. But what I find in the book of Matthew is that there is a young man that is born, a baby that is born, that comes down through 42 generations. This young man, this baby that is born, comes into the world through a virgin birth. This child is born down through 42 generations, and those 42 generations were not the best generations in the world. There was some evilness that went on in those 42 generations. There was some whorishness that went on in those 42 generations. There was some lying that went on in those 42 generations. But in spite of it all, there was something good that came out of those 42 generations. I don't know if you realize that, yes, you have been born also through a number of generations. And it's not time for you to continue to hang your hat on what has gone on in your past, but it's time for you to hang your hat on what's about to occur in your future.
All right. I hear you. Yes, sir.
Maybe someone is feeling a little down on today. You don't realize that there is something good that is going to come in your future. You don't have to worry about how your past has been. You spend too much time relishing over the curses of your past. And my daddy isn't going to mind me saying it because it's the truth. So he's not afraid of me making the statement. But if I look back through my grandmother's years, my grandmother was married 3 times. So she was not able to find a good time or a good life with her husbands. And then it came down the line that she had another child. She had a child, and that child married my father. Now something went on in the relationship that did not allow mommy and daddy to stay together, but they produced me. Now there's some curses that may have occurred in the past, down through the generations, and it's not for me to have to live through those curses. I can look at what God may have not been able to keep together through grandmama and great-grandmama and mama and daddy, but I can look at what God is able to do in my life right now and realize that just because daddy wasn't able to do it, just because grandmama wasn't able to do it, just because great-grandmama couldn't do it, doesn't mean that I can't do it. You sit there and you realize that there's some issues and struggles that have come into your life, that some things have happened in your life. You must not relish on the past because mama and daddy went through it. You must relish on the future of the blessing that is on its way to work its way through your life and into your life if you're determined to live for the Lord. Let me help you understand that. You must be determined to live for the Lord, because there's going to be some obstacles that are going to come your way. There's going to be some trials that are going to come your way. There's going to be some hurdles that you're going to have to go over in order for you to make it to your destination. Where you are right now is not your destiny.
That's right.
I don't know who I'm talking to today, but there's some things that some of us have been going through, and just because it does not look rosy right now doesn't mean that that's your destiny for now. Where you may be right now does not mean that's where you're going to end up. Because the story goes on to tell me, when you begin to look at chapter 2 of this same story, that people began to speak about this baby that was born. People began to talk about this child that was born. Some talked about it in a positive light. Some talked about him as being a wise. The wise men talked about Jesus as being a great man of God, the Son of God, that he's come to be the Savior of Israel. And then there were some others that talked about Jesus and said that he cannot be the man that he says that he is. Who is this king that says he's coming to take over my kingdom? King Herod was afraid of the fact that Jesus was coming on the scene. King Herod was afraid of the fact that somebody else about Jesus and was talking about this man that was going to be able to save the children of Israel from the depression and from the struggles that they were in. When you were born, folks began to talk about you too. Folks began to talk about how great you were going to be. Began to talk about how wonderful you were going to be. And then you had some naysayers out there that didn't feel as though you were a cute little baby, as cute as your mama may have thought you were. Folks may have looked at you and said, oh, that child ain't going to do nothing. And as the child began to grow, folks began to look at the child. They began to look at Jesus, and they began to see that Jesus himself was growing into, sometimes they felt, was a smart aleck of a young man. At 12 years old, Jesus is found in the temple, answering questions of folk and questioning the Pharisees in the midst of their own temple. And they looked at him, who are you, young man, to come and question us? Folks look at you as you are beginning to grow into the person that you are, as you're beginning to grow into the individual that you are. You must understand, I may be speaking to some folks that are 40, 50, 60 years old, but when you're born again, you're starting a new life. So folks are beginning to look at you as you are now stepping into this life of salvation, and they are speaking to you and discrediting you because you are now trying to step out and do what God is asking you to do. The only thing Jesus did was what his Father asked him to do. The only thing that you're doing when you begin to enter into the realm of Christendom and you begin to enter into the land of salvation, you are doing what God is asking you to do. So when individuals begin to speak negatively of you, it's not for you to feel the bad about it. It's not for you to get depressed over it. It's not for you to stop doing it. But it's for you to be determined that you are going to go all the way. Jesus was looking at this, and he then began his ministries. In chapter 3, you see where he began his ministries. But before he started in his ministries, the Bible tells us that Jesus went into a fast. And it says the fast that he was on was for 40 days. And that 40-day fast, that Jesus was being led by the Spirit. And he was being led by the Spirit. And while he was on this fast, the devil came and tempted him on 3 separate occasions. The devil came and spoke to him the first time, knowing that he came off of the fast, and asked him, listen, if you're really the Son of God, whom you say that you are, then take these stones and turn them into bread. Feed yourself. Stop all this pain and suffering that you're going through. Feed yourself. And Jesus looked at the devil and told the devil, man shall not live by bread alone, but out of every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God. That was the word. The devil tries to, when we are in our midst of our sacrifices unto him, when we're in the midst of fasting for the Lord and praying unto God for a breakthrough through the struggle or the crisis that you might be dealing with, the devil then comes and approaches you as well. And he talks to you in a manner to tell you that you don't need to do it that way. Salvation isn't made up like that. You can still do this other stuff and still be saved. You can still do this. You don't have to worry about loving all these folks. You can just love a few of them and still. But that's not what the Bible says.
All right.
So after Jesus put a little word on the devil stepped away for only a season. See, we find ourselves feeling as though that we've been struggling in issues and in the midst of some trials and tribulations. And while we're in those trials and tribulations, we get this false reality of thinking that if I get saved, everything will be all right. Because we sing those songs, but we must realize that your salvation moves the devil away for a season.
All right.
Allows the devil to go and arm himself once again, tries to gird himself up once again, because the word that you put on the devil has a tendency to make him back up from what you're saying or what you're doing. Now, once he goes and he girds himself once again, he came back to Jesus. And when he went to him the second time, he came to him and he told him, listen, you say that God has angels that protect you. Why don't you throw yourself off this cliff and allow the angels that you're saying your God has, allow them to come and pick you up and protect you while you're falling down off of this cliff. And Jesus, knowing the person that he was, turned to the devil and put the word back on the devil once again.
Yes, he did.
He told him, listen, it is not my place to tempt God.
That's right.
So it's not for me to tempt him, but I know that he will protect me in spite of all that I'm going through. So when you're in the midst of your struggle, it's not for you to tempt God. It's not for you to decide that I can still go into the crack house even though I'm trying to relieve myself of this addiction of crack that I have. Because I'm saved, I can still go into the prostitute's house, and I know that there's no need for me to tempt God in that fashion. You sit back and you realize that God has delivered me from the ability to be able to be a better steward of the money that he has given to me. There's no need for you to go to the gambling house now. There's no need for you to try and take large sums of money and keep them in your pocket, knowing what it's going to do to you, how it's going to enter into your mind, and what it's going to make you feel like you want and need to do. There's no need for you. If you know that that woman is tempting you, there's no need for you to go over and see that woman by yourself. If you're unsaved, or if you're saved, if you're a man trying to live in this world and you're trying to refrain yourself from fornication, there's no need for you to go to the house by yourself. I ain't got no help in here today. You sit back and you look at how you've been dealing with situations in your life. You know that if people talk to you in a certain manner, that it makes you react and respond in certain ways. There's no need to continue to put yourself in that same situation and just believe that or say that, well, God's going to deliver me from it. I was talking to an individual once that told me, I don't really wear my seatbelt when I drive because I believe that God is going to protect me. And I looked at them and I was like, I don't understand why you would feel that way. The law of the land says, put your seatbelt on. Why would you then try and put that on God to protect you when you're breaking the law? Why would you do it? And then want to put that out that if Jesus didn't protect you, if you find yourself in an accident and Jesus didn't protect, now you want to blame God for your broken leg. Do you understand what you're doing? You're going, the devil is tempting you. You don't have to put that seatbelt on. You don't have to do X, you don't have to do Y. And you find yourself putting yourself in a position trying to force God's hand to protect you. You find yourself, you know that you shouldn't be dealing with this person in that manner, but you find yourself in that predicament once again. But you want to blame God for if things should go wrong.
All right.
Not only did that happen, but then Jesus put him off on that when he said, it's not for me to tempt the Lord. It is written, again, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. The devil went away for yet a season. But then he came back a third time. And he told him, look, if you would just bow before me.
All right.
If you would just bow and worship. Look out here, Jesus. Look at everything. I am the Prince of the air. God gave me that title. Look at what I can give to you. If you will just bow down and worship me. This is what the devil is saying to Jesus. And Jesus then turns to him and he says, and these words. Get thee, Satan, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shall thou serve. The devil finds, you should find yourself, and I'm hoping you can relate this story to you. You can find yourself where the devil is speaking to you at times, asking you to do things that you know you should not be doing. Asking you to act and respond and react in ways that you know you should not be reacting. Your job is to then turn to the devil and let him know that I will only worship the true and living God. I will only serve the the true and living Savior. I've given my life to him. And for those of you that may not have given your life to him yet, you need to look at the devil and say, I've been going through all this stuff, serving you, Satan, and times don't seem to be getting any better. So if I need to, I should just give God a little bit of a try just to see if things will be better.
All right.
But for those of us that are serving the Lord, we can look and realize that I will serve only you, God, in spite of all that I might be going through, in spite of all the situations that I might be dealing with, in spite of all the circumstances that may be coming my way. I will serve you, Lord. Just as the choir sung the song, I'm determined. God is looking for determined people. He's looking for individuals that are not going to just give up because the going gets a little hard. He's not looking for folks that are going to give up because the going gets a little tough. He's not looking for folks to give up because the going is getting a little awkward. Jesus survived those 3 temptations. And the story goes on to tell us that Jesus then began his ministry. After this fasting, after this prayer that he had gone into, he then began his ministry. And at the start of his ministries, in the 4th chapter of the book of Matthew, the Bible goes on to tell us that Jesus began teaching. And in his teachings, that everybody did not agree with Jesus, and everybody was not on Jesus' side. So what you must realize is that just because you're saved does not mean that everybody's going to be on your side. Everybody, because you are saying that you are a child of God, is not going to treat you like a child of God. Everybody that says that they are with God is not going to treat you, just because you say you're with God, is not going to treat you like you feel you ought to be treated. Because Jesus was not loved by everybody, so why do you feel you're going to be loved by everybody? But that does not mistake the fact that God is telling you to love.
Yes, sir. Amen.
Everybody.
I hear you.
Listen, as Jesus went through, he was going through his ministries, and even though folks didn't agree with him, he still went through and ministered the way Christ and the way God had asked him to do. He still was performing miracles. He was still healing individuals. He was still speaking to the folks in the synagogue. He was letting them know that here is what God has assigned for me to do. And in the work that I am assigned to do, I must still continue to do them. Before all of that was occurring, Jesus went through, and he acknowledged to the world who he was by being baptized by John the Baptist. Everybody understands the story of John the Baptist. He was a man that everybody looked at and saw because he was out baptizing folks in the name of God. And when he began to do that, Jesus came to John and told John, you, John, baptize me. John then turned and said, I'm not worthy, Lord. I'm not worthy to baptize you. Many of us are looking at the life that we're living for God, and we find God asking us to do something for him. And we find ourselves making the same statement, Lord, I'm not worthy, Lord, to do what you're asking of me to do. But God did not deny, and he did not allow John to do that. He said, I don't care how you may be feeling, it's your job to baptize me, John, because I will then take it over from there. What you must understand is the significance behind John baptizing Jesus and then Jesus taking over from there is that once you allow Christ into your life and you allow him to baptize you and you publicly express that, Lord, for you I will live and for you I will die, then it's time for Jesus to take over, and you can leave all the stuff that you're trying to do alone and allow God to then take his rightful place in your life and begin to lead you just as the Spirit led Jesus into his sacrifice. Now you must allow God to lead you into your sacrifice. So we fast forward. Here's Jesus. He's been baptized now. He's been tempted. And he's going through and he's allowed the devil to move away from him. Jesus then goes on as he is speaking to many of his disciples, and he's pulling his disciples together. We're not going to go through all the stories of how he got all 12 of them, but you begin to see as things are going on, many different miracles are being performed by Jesus. Jesus is becoming a very popular name in the streets. Folks are realizing and recognizing what Jesus has been capable and able to do. And the men that are following him and the women that are following him, I realized that this is truly the Son of God. He is truly the man of whom he says that he is. He's going through as he's doing his ministry here, and you'll find yourself, he speaks to them in parables, and he's giving them wisdom, and he's imparting knowledge and understanding unto them, and he's moving through and speaking to them about many different things that will occur as they are following him. Jesus is now moving and growing, and folks are beginning to recognize who he is. And as you realize who Jesus is, then you're able to realize who you're serving. When you recognize who Jesus is, then you realize what he's capable of doing. When you realize what he's capable of doing, then you're willing to serve him. When you're willing to serve him, then you realize what God has moved you from. You can look back over your life as you think things over. You can look back over your life and realize that the God that I'm serving now has brought me from a mighty long way. I don't care what I may have been doing, but now I know what I am doing. I know what God has done for me in the past, and I realize what he's doing for me now. And see, I realize that, so I'm able to move forward into the future. I'm not concerned about how my past used to be. I'm not concerned about how things used to be going in my life. I'm able to move forward as I got Christ on. Find myself moving very quickly as we see what God was able to do, the miracles that he was able to perform. And we realize that as he was performing these miracles, that many folks were following him and were looking at him. Some were following him because they believed in who he was. Others were following him because they wanted to find fault in what he does. Folks are looking at you in that same manner. Some folks are looking at you and following you and believing in you because of how you're saying Christ is working in your life. And they're astounded by how Christ is doing things in your life. And they're saying, if I could just have that same God that you've got, I know that things will work out for me in my life. I know things aren't working exactly the way I want them to. But I look at Brother Phil and I see that Christ is in his life and how Christ is moving in his life. And I realize that if I can have that same God that he has, that things might work out better for me. I look at Brother Michael and I see how God is moving in his life. And if I can get that same God in my life, maybe things will turn out better for me. But these same individuals have folks that look at them. And as they look at them, they're not looking to see how good God is working in their life. They're trying to find fault in their life. They're trying to find something that they can hang a scandal on. They're trying to find something that they can hang some negativity on. They're trying to find something that they can talk about them on. But they live their life so that when God is moving in their life, they don't have to worry about the scandal that may come up. I know when I've got God on my side, I don't have to worry about nobody else that might be dealing. I know that if I got God on my side, that the Bible tells me that if God before me, who can be against me? I'm living my life so that God can live through me. I'm living my life so that others might see Christ in my life. I'm living my life so that others may talk. I'm not concerned about their conversations. I'm not concerned about their angst. I'm not concerned about their discussions. But I'm going to live my life and do what God has asked me to do. I'm going to live my life and do what God has assigned me to do. I'm going to live my life so that God can use me. I'm going to live my life so that God is pleased with me. I'm going to live my life so that God can use me. As I look, Jesus was going on and he went through all these different things. He went and had these various miracles that he performed. Folks were talking great things about him, but he still had some naysayers. He still had some folks that didn't like him. And as you move fast forward in through the Bible, you realize that around about the 21st chapter, Jesus is making this triumphal entry into Jerusalem. He is coming in, and the saints of God are following him. They are laying out palms, and they're laying them out and saying, Hosanna, Hosanna. They're laying the the tree, and they laid the stem towards you, and they laid the vines away from you. It's for you to travel the path of victory. The palm was a sign of victory. It was a sign of victory for you to travel down. It was a sign of victory for you to follow. It was a sign of victory that Jesus was not through. It was a sign that Jesus was coming back again. They already had been to Jerusalem once, and he had already done some miracles in Jerusalem already. But then he had left, and the signs of the palms was that Jesus is on his way again. How many of you know that Jesus is coming back? He's coming back again. He's coming back one day for a church without a spot or wrinkle. It is time for you to get in the press. It is time for you to get in the walk. It is time. Jesus came in with this triumphal entry only to find out that 4 days later, the same folks that were screaming, Hosanna, Hosanna, the same individuals were crying out, crucify him. The same folks that were on your side might be crying out against you tomorrow. The same folks that were saying, come on in. The table is spread and the feast of the Lord is going on. Might be the same ones saying, get up from the table. Get away from me. I don't want you near me. The same folks that were crying out to him were yelling out, crucify. But the thing that encouraged me as I was reading this story, that's not how the story ends. In spite of what you might be going through, in spite of what you might be dealing with, understand that's not how the story. Got you to read about 5 or 10 of y'all sitting in the room right now. Somebody needs to clap their hands and give God some praise. That's not how the story ends. It goes on to tell me that they went through, and some of his disciples that were following him began to be questioned. Jesus was going to be crucified. They had said what they were going to do to him, and they knew, his disciples knew what a crucifixion was made of. They knew what a crucifixion death was like. They had seen it before. They had seen the pain that you went through. They seen the agony that you go through. They saw the struggle that you went through. And they saw that Jesus was about to enter into the same situation. So some folks saw him. In particular, some folks saw Peter, who had made a statement to Jesus and said, Jesus, I will follow you wherever you go. So he said, I won't allow nothing to separate me, Jesus, from your love. Many of us have said the same thing, but we find ourselves in the midst of a struggle. We find ourselves in the midst of a situation, turning our back on God and saying, crucify him. He's not helping me, so crucify him. He's not with me, so crucify him. Lord, where are you? Where have I been going through this? Where are you now? Right now. That's not how the story is. Jesus had turned his back on his disciples. He let them know, in spite of what you're going through, I'm still going to be with you. In spite of your sadness, brother, I'm still going to be with you. In spite of your pain, sister, I'm still going to be with you. In spite of your circumstances, I'm still going to be with you. Even though your children may not want to be with you, I'm going to be with you. Even though your husband may not want to be with you, I'm going to be with you. Even though your loved ones might leave you, I'm going to be with you. Somebody shout, I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing what Jesus went through. They beat him. They were bringing him up, and they were whipping him, beating him, and causing all sorts of pain to be upon him. But I realized that, Brother Seals, that's not how the story is. They had him, whipped and shredded him, beat like he was unnoticeable. But that's not how the story ends. Jesus was carrying the cross. And the Bible tells me that if any man come after him, that they must take up their own cross. Jesus is trying to say, in spite of what you might be carrying, that's not how your story ends. Jesus was carrying the cross, and as he was moving forward, it began to get a little heavy. That Jesus found himself falling to his knees. And what you must understand is when times get too hard, it's not time for you to stand there. Sometimes you gotta fall on your knees. And once you fall on your knees, with your hands lifted up, you can find salvation. You can find refreshment. You can find that God is bringing you through. Jesus is falling while he was carrying the cross. Even the Roman soldiers realized that this must be the Son of God. So they assigned somebody to help him pick the cross up. How many of you know that when you're in trouble, that Jesus assigned somebody to help you pick the cross up? Let me help you understand it this way. It's March Madness. And I heard a preacher say once that Jesus is the referee in the midst of the games. And while the games are going on, the ref at times blows his whistle because a foul has been committed. And what he does is he stops everything that might be going on